have to start. You have to do it, and you
Yeah.
have to keep doing it. And it takes a while to figure out what you really love, what your individual style is. And I think when you start, I think there's a quote that you learn from the masters so that you can break the rules.
Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. My guest today is a CRNA who is using her spare time to explore the world of painting. Maureen Palazzolo is an artist and CRNA who is well on her way to finding balance, peace of mind, and fulfillment through the beautiful outlet of painting. She works primarily in acrylics on canvas, painting colorful and passionate pieces that bring joy to her clients. She's slowly and steadily growing her art business, second Rendition, both online and in person, giving her art to the world and teaching others how to find emotional peace through art. It's great to have you on the show today, Maureen.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, it's you have some beautiful artwork already behind you, and I see you have your mentor Bob Ross as well.
Yes. Bob is ever present.
Yeah,
in my studio.
Happy little trees, man. I love it.
Exactly. Yes.
So, I'd love it if you would just, share a little bit about yourself and how you got your start in painting.
Yeah. So I have been a CRNA for almost 10 years now, and done pediatrics and worked at the big county hospital. And now I'm at a community place, doing kind of a little bit more of a cushy, relaxed gig, which is nice. Because
yeah, you get through all that stuff in the beginning and you're like, okay, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. And gosh, it was probably about sort of the end of 2019. I was going through a difficult time. I'm divorced and remarried, and I have kids with my ex, and we had kind of just a rough patch working through some things. And then I was diagnosed with depression, and I luckily felt okay with seeing my doctor and getting some help, and seeing a counselor. And with all of that, turned out this painting, which I've always been a creative person and had that part in my life. And I thought, I'm just going to learn how to do this. And then COVID happened, and that, I don't know, kind of helped because all of our work hours were cut back and a lot more time at home, which produced its own level of stressors, I think, that we all experienced.
Yeah.
And so I just started and put a few pieces out into the world, just to my friends and family, showing them what I was up to. And I had people say, hey, is that for sale? Can I buy that? Or could you make a piece for me? And that's how it started. Was very slow with people I knew right, within my immediate circle, but then it started to expand as I put more pieces out there, and primarily through social media. And then I realized, I should probably make a website, and I should probably make it easier for people to find me. And that's kind of how it all happened.
Very cool. Well, so that's got to be some great feedback to get like you're showing people your artwork and they're not, they're not saying to you, oh, that's cute.
Right.
That's how adorable. You're trying it out. That's great.
Yes, good for you. It'll all be for you.
Yeah. So you're doing something right. That's awesome. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, I think, in some ways that also can be motivating because like anything, you start to grow it and you have the ups and you have the downs. And almost every time I get to the point where I'm thinking, why am I even bothering with this? Someone will say, hey, I really like this.
yeah.
Is this for sale? Or I've gotten into the world of people saying, hiring me to paint specific pieces for them or for family members. And so that does help motivate a bit because you do have those times when you just feel like, what am I even doing?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. I completely. I feel that way with the show sometimes. No,
Yeah.
no lie. I mean, but it is that way. And then you get this great feedback and it just makes you feel wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
So, well, very cool. So, it seems like, you obviously have spent some time on this and, in my understanding, like obviously some of the more abstract art and stuff, some of that can be created more quickly and other pieces take a lot more time to complete. How much time do you spend on some of your pieces and, how much time do you spend per week on your artwork?
That's a really great question. So at least, gosh, probably 10, 15 hours a week, I think. And it kind of depends on the type of piece that I'm doing. I do primarily abstract art,
Okay.
which you can probably see on the wall behind me. But I also do a lot with what's called fluid acrylics, which is pour painting, which is kind of
Oh,
a
yeah.
newer thing. And those don't take as long just in terms of the actual creation of the piece. The labor intensive part on that is mixing up all of the paints. I tend to do a lot of big pieces. I don't paint very well on small pieces, and so that's an area of growth for me for sure. But
Okay.
the big pour paintings take an incredible amount of paint, and they are very messy.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, and so for that to mix up that amount of paint and then make a piece. But what I like about that style of painting, though, is that you do have this labor-intensive piece, but it doesn't require a whole lot of thought when you're making the paints. And then you come up with a rough idea of what you want to do with the canvas, but most of it is almost entirely out of your control because the paint is going to go where it's going to go. It's going to flow where it's going to flow. And for a type A person like myself, that can be very freeing because you can't force it into doing what you want it to do. You have to have almost this give and take with the
Yeah.
piece that you're working on. And that applies to the other pieces that I do with brushes on canvas. If you hold on a little too tightly, it does not work. A lot of my fastest, easiest pieces are when I think I'm just going to play around today and just do what I want to do. And I don't worry as much about the outcome. I think that is another piece probably related to our jobs and what we do. So much of it is focused on outcome. How is this person going to do? What does my chart look like? Is this a beautiful chart? Is this not a beautiful chart? How is this person throwing up in the PACU? Are they in pain? All of the things. And your training tells you that the flip side is dictating if you're good at what you're doing. And art is completely different because the outcome really is not the important part. The important part is the process of doing it and the process of putting your emotions or your feelings, or even there are some times when I just put some paint on the canvas and mess around, and then it does not turn into anything good. I have a whole naughty corner of canvases that are maybe beyond help. I don't know.
Well,
But
yeah.
for those, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to work through whatever and it is going on in your mind and on your heart, and see if you can turn it into something amazing.
Yeah.
But that outcome based focus, I think that makes it hard when you're first starting and when you're first selling, because you are thinking, you get in this trap of what is somebody going to want to buy. And then after a while, you realize they came to me, they want what I'm putting out there. So I don't have to worry about what someone will buy, because the world is huge. There's a niche for you, no matter what. Someone somewhere will find what you are creating and they will want it. And so it's more important to be in touch with your style and what you enjoy doing. You don't want it to become a chore. And realizing how big the world is, and there is someone out there who's going to love what you do.
I love that. Like I want to wrap that all up and like bottle it up. That was really cool. And I love the journey. I like how the process of painting is a journey in and of itself. And you know, you nailed it on the head. Like, it's so much about outcomes in our profession and in so many other professions. You know, it's all about, you know, productivity and outcomes. And,
yes.
You know, like, you got to be pumping out the, you know, the paintings or whatever. And that's not really what it's about for you. And that's fantastic, because, you know, it would be easy to get into that trap where you're just putting stuff out all the time and you're not really putting yourself into it, though.
Yeah. And I think, you know, when you make, or if you try to sort of pump out a lot of pieces, I think the quality is not as good. I feel like you don't have that level of pride that you think, oh, I did this. Like, this is something, like, this is a part of me that is now out in the universe that someone else can enjoy. And I think that again, you kind of get into this thought, you can get into that trap of thinking, well, what if nobody likes this? And honestly, it doesn't really matter. There are going to be people that hate what you do. I remember the first hate comment I got on my Instagram, and it was devastating in my heart. Because I thought, how can you say that thing? How could you say it? And they made some comment along the lines of, what a waste of paint. I hope it's cheap.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, devastated.
It hurts so much. Yes. Those negative comments, it's amazing. You can have 100 positive reviews and you get a couple of negative ones and it throws you off completely.
Yeah. And that was that moment. And I'll say the vast majority of people that are sort of in my circle or that are following me on social media or that are interested, they love what I do. And so you have to take the good with the bad, but also just know there are going to be people. I mean, there are people that hate Monet, and they're entitled to hate Monet. He's considered one of the masters. That doesn't mean you have to love it. And I think, you know, unfortunately, we're in a period of time where you have the good and the bad of social media, where someone can really love what you do and promote it and help you out. And then you also have the anonymous person behind the screen who just decides that they are cranky that day and want to make you feel bad.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You don't know what other people are going through too. So,
right.
Well, funny about, you mentioned Monet, because fun fact, like, his paintings actually got much, much larger as he got older because his eyesight got worse. And you may have already known that, but maybe somebody out there didn't.
Well, maybe somebody didn't. And, you know, there's always these little fun facts.
Yeah. I just happen to know that I think I picked it up when I visited Paris at you know, and saw many, like, he's got some really huge paintings that he did towards the end of his life. And it's it's pretty astounding to walk within that too. But getting off topic here, so
Okay.
I'll bring it back around. But needless to say, though, I'm really a newbie to this kind of stuff. Like I've not created or any kind of artwork truly since I was maybe in high school.
Yeah.
And I was drawing, doodling, things like that. But and I've never really painted. So where is it that you go to get your supplies, and how do you make those kinds of decisions about what to get?
That is a great question. So when I first started, I would get most of my supplies from Michael's, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, just the neighborhood Michael's. I think when you're first starting out, it's good to use they have different levels of paints, canvases, brushes, all that stuff. And they have a student level, they have the intermediate, and then they have what they call the professional. And those things will be comparatively more expensive as you go up on the scales of what they consider to be the student level. But there are a lot of very reasonably priced intermediate paints and brushes. And I think when you're first starting, just start. It's like anything. You just got to put one foot in front of the other, try it. And don't use the expensive stuff, because then when you create your own naughty corner, you won't feel as bad about it. But it's, you have to make a lot of bad art to make good art. And the only way to get better at it and to get good at it is to make a lot of bad art that you will not show to anybody, that you don't want anybody to see. But you're not going to get better, and you're not going to learn and play and try new things if you don't give yourself permission to just mess some stuff up. Now I use the professional grade. There's a mom and pop art store that is pretty close to where I live, and they sell all of the real high-end paints, which is mostly related to the pigments that they put into the paints. And so you can use a lot less of the paint and have much better color with it. And then same thing with the canvases. They sell, when you're first starting, just get it's like a 5-pack of student canvases, and start with that. Start on paper, just start, really, is what it comes down to. And there are a lot of really good tutorials on YouTube. If you have no idea where to start, you have no idea what even colors to get, and they're free, and you can do a painting lesson online with someone somewhere in the world who will show you how to do something. And if nothing else, it gives you an idea how to start and what you might like. Very
cool. Very cool. Yeah, my mom was actually recently exploring watercolors, and she was looking specifically for my daughter, who I'll get into in a minute. But and she was looking at this stuff, and like for a little couple ounce jar of these paints and stuff, she was wondering, oh, do I need to go this route for your daughter? And I'm like, well, no, she's 12. You don't have to get the super duper expensive stuff, even though it'll go, I guess the thing about it was that you could mix the colors together better, or something along those lines. And that was the point that the website was making about this particular set. But I said, no, we don't have to worry about mixing colors yet. It's watercolor. She's going to be fine. Let's just get her started, But, and as with any hobby, I mean, I'm sure that this stuff can get pretty pricey. So, when you're creating a piece, how do you balance that quality versus quantity kind of question there? Because obviously you gotta get practice. You gotta, use some paint and use some canvas to get good at it. But, when you're talking about a particular piece, how does that look for you?
Yeah. So when I'm doing the big pour painting type stuff, I don't use the expensive paints for that, because the sheer volume of paint that you end up using is I don't feel like there's a good cost benefit
Yeah.
ratio going on there
Mhm.
with that. As far as the pieces that I do on canvas, I kind of mix it up. So for some things, I'll use the mid-grade paints, or if I'm putting down what they call like an underpainting, which is when you sort of map out what you're going to do and you're going to use a lot more paint on that,
Mhm.
then I'll use the mid-grade paints. And then when I get, well, so I guess the difference between watercolors, or not the difference, but a big difference between watercolors and acrylics is that most of the time with watercolors, you will paint light to dark. And with acrylics, you will paint dark to light. And you will also paint with acrylics transparent to opaque. So on your little bottles, even the student grade, it will tell you the opacity of your paint. And you want to start with the transparents because they will layer really nicely on each other. You can mix them a little bit. And then you'll move to the more opaque paints, and then you move to light, which means mixing in usually white to make that happen. So as I get to the top layers of a painting, then that's when I start to use more of the higher end paints, because the pigments are better, and the just the colors, the way you can mix them is better with the higher end paints.
That is so fascinating because I visited our family visited Jonas Gerard's studio in Asheville,
Mm-hmm.
and he recently passed away, after a little bit after COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
but it was a fascinating experience because you got to go into his studio, and he was there painting that day. We were so fortunate to be able to be there and watch him. And
Mm-hmm.
my oldest daughter, who I already mentioned, Eva, she was able to watch him paint a little bit and kind of get into it. And he was totally showing her. And I mean, he was just flinging paint everywhere. It was
Uh-huh.
completely abstract, and then
Yeah.
it would come out beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a piece that my in-laws have of his that it
Mm-hmm.
looks like this beautiful bouquet of flowers, but when
Mm-hmm.
it's just, but it's chunks of paint, and just
Mm-hmm.
blobs here, and it's just so sporadic. So I mean, it's interesting though that you mentioned about the layering aspect of that, because I would have never even thought, oh yeah, well, you're gonna, have this back layer that's maybe, you're just kind of getting started and you're using those less expensive paints, and then you save the good stuff for the front, which makes complete sense, but just not something that's, you think about when you're first getting started, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that was something that I don't know how I just didn't really get it, but that your really good pieces, and whether it's watercolor or acrylics or oils, whatever it is, it's more than one layer of paint. And I
Mhm.
think, when you're in elementary school art class, you get this idea that you're going to paint your picture and you have 45 minutes to do it and then you're done. And for
Yeah.
some reason, even though I'm, in my 40s, I thought, oh, that's how that's done. And that is
Yeah.
totally not how it's done. And so I think that can help too, because, and acrylics are very forgiving. As far as if you do put something down and then you realize, oh, that's awful. Why did I do that? You just let it dry for a little bit and you can go right back in and cover it up.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so it's a nice medium for that, because you can give yourself the freedom to experiment and play around. But yeah, I had this idea that, you just sit down in an afternoon and you do a painting.
Yeah.
And that's not really well, for me anyway. I'm sure there's someone out there who can do it that way. I can't. And so I usually will put down, I think you just get something on the canvas to start, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're staring at this giant white blank thing, and the possibilities are a little overwhelming, and you can just get stuck in your own head. So just slap something on there. And then once you start doing it, you sort of get into that mode of, oh, I'm going to do this. And then it really is a give and take between you and what you're, at least in abstracts, which is what I work in. And there's a reason for that, is because it is very, what did I just put down? What am I going to do in response to that? And for another part that I didn't realize is a lot of paintings, I'm working on 6 to 8 paintings at a time. And so I'll do a little bit here and I'll do a little bit over on this one. And part of that, when I first started doing it, was just the cost effectiveness, because you can make a little collection of pieces that are in the same color palette, that have a similar theme, different sizes, but then you're not wasting paint. Which, when it costs as much as it costs, it's nice to have that. But then I'll also have a whole other group that are completely different color palette and different, and it helps kind of switch your brain from the different places, and kind of keeps that creativity flowing. And then a lot of times, I have to just walk away from it, and I have to force myself, because there's such a thing as overworking something. And I usually will take photos of things as I'm working on them. And when I first started, there were a lot of times that the photo in the middle, before I had gone back and done more, I was like, why did I cover that up? That was good enough. That would have been fine. And so I think, you have to remember that too. And if you're getting frustrated, it's okay to walk away from it. It's still going to be there. Or sometimes you get in that mode, you keep going, and then you really have to force yourself to say, hey, stop. Let the painting rest for a little bit. Let it do its thing, and then come back to it a few days later and keep going.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen some artists work, and I'll see something and they're creating it, and they get to a point and I'm like, wow, that looks amazing. I just leave it there. And then, but they keep going, and then they keep doing, and they keep making it even more amazing, which, blows my mind. I guess the creativity that's involved with that, and the process of, seeing, how it comes from the mind to being put onto paper. So I guess that leads me to a question, where do you draw your inspiration from when you're getting started on some of these pieces? Where's your inspiration drawn from?
Gosh, a lot of different things. I do tend to gravitate towards florals, because I really like them, because flowers are just inherently have a lot of color and a lot of joy. But I also, sometimes it's a person, or it's a feeling, or it is an interaction. I had a couple pieces. Well, I had one that I did, I think it was about a year and a half ago. So this is a long story, so bear with me, but it's a good story.
You're good.
Okay.
Go for it.
And so my godmother lives down in Louisiana, and her husband had passed away, and her daughter asked if I would paint her a cheery floral type piece that she could put in her bedroom, because her mom was, obviously still grieving. They had been married for over 50 years, and she really wanted this piece. And so while I was painting it, in my mind, I was thinking about mothers and all the different relationships and the different types of mothers we have, whether, it is your actual biological mom, or it's an aunt, or if it's just a wise, at work, we have our work moms, the one sort of old wise person who's there and can give you a lot of guidance. And just thinking about all of those different relationships. And, I'm a stepmom. And so I have two of my stepkids, and then I have my own kids, and thinking about all of those relationships. And that was one of the easiest pieces I've painted, because the whole time when I thought about it, I was thinking about her, and I was thinking about those dynamics and those relationships. And so that one was one of those that really didn't take me very much time, and it just kind of flowed. And the great part of the story is that this fall, my my son, he's probably my number one promoter. He just turned 13. And so he will tell everybody that his mom is an artist and she's also a nurse anesthetist. And this is her website. And he one time pilfered some of my business cards and passed them out at school. And so he happened to give one. He gave one to his art teacher, and she looked at my website and she sent me an email, and she said, that piece of mothers, because I had it on my website just as a gallery. And she said, I really love that. And my mom passed away last December unexpectedly. And I'm wondering if you have that piece. And I said, I'm really sorry, I don't. That was for someone else. And I, at the time I was kind of just beginning. So I didn't have a lot of prints. I didn't, have any photographs. And so kind of left it at that. Well, about a month and a half ago, I went and I checked on a drive that you can upload pieces to. And I had a photo of that piece that was a really good photo. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can just order a print of it. So I went on Society 6 and I uploaded the photo, downloaded a print. And then they said it was on the way. About 5 days later, they said, okay, it should be in your mailbox. And it was a Wednesday night after getting home from work, like everything's 8 p.m. And I was like, I have to get this print out of my mailbox. And this art teacher, she needs this tomorrow. And I could not have told you why. I had no clue. So my son and I, we go up, we get the painting. I wrote her a little note, said, I'm so sorry that you lost your mom, and I hope that this could maybe give you some peace, and gave it to her the next day. So my son, Phil, gives it to her. She sent me an email and she said that was her mom's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And that her mom always loved the first snow, and it snowed for the first time in Colorado on that day. And she's just said, I can't even tell you what this means. And so that's kind of a long story, but it's one of those that is like, oh, wow, like what I do makes a difference. This can really impact someone. And that was one of those moments. And so to kind of come back to the whole inspiration thing, I think you can draw your inspiration from a lot of things, but what I find to be the easiest things are when I think about either a specific person. If someone says, hey, and it helps if I know them really well. If I don't know them really well, it's a little bit harder. But when I know someone and they say, hey, this is what I want, and I just think about that person and the different parts of them that are really great, and how do I put that on this canvas and make it representative of them.
So. That is such a beautiful story. I that's just amazing. Like those life coincidences and stuff, it's just amazing to hear stories like that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was one of those that I got that email and I thought, oh yeah. Sort of the chills, kind of in a good way, chills. And I thought, well, that explains why in my mind. And like I said, I could not have told you why, but I was like, she has got to get this thing tomorrow.
Yeah. No doubt. That's an amazing story. And I really appreciate you sharing that. So gosh, I don't even know how to follow that up. That's amazing. Okay. So I guess, when I think about art, I always, now I go back to my oldest daughter. She's 12 years old. Her name's Eva. And, she is really taking on her own style of artwork. And she's such a better artist than I ever was at that age. And, she's got her own style and it's mainly drawing for her, but she has done some painting in the past. And I guess the question for me is like, how, what advice do you have for aspiring artists, younger artists who are trying to hone their craft a little bit? I mean, she watches these videos on YouTube. She gets, and she'll just watch them one after another, and she'll try to draw things that she sees. but what kind of advice do you have for maybe encouraging that within your kids? And
Yeah. So I think, gosh, I mean, this is going to sound a little bit trite, but you have to start. You have to do it, and you
yeah.
have to keep doing it. And it takes a while to figure out what you really love, what your individual style is. And I think when you start, I think there's a quote from, oh shoot, I forget who it is. So, and I'm probably gonna like horribly misquote this, but it's that you learn from the masters so that you can break the rules. And so if she is watching and learning, and again, it's the journey. Does she love it? Does she have fun? Is she enjoying it? Because eventually you get to, when you're sort of watching other people and learning from other people, you think, I want to try something different, or I want to try this. But it's almost like a muscle that you have to build. You have to, even like elite athletes. Yes, they have some talent, but their drive to compete and their repeated practicing and practicing and practicing. And it is the same thing with art. You have talent, or maybe you don't. I mean, who knows? I think everybody has a little bit of creativity, but we don't exercise it as often as we can. Or you try one thing and you think, oh, I'm not creative. I'm not cut out for this. And if you, tried to hit a baseball one time, if you had one time at the plate and you swung and you missed, and then you said, oh, I'm not good at this, I gotta go.
Yeah.
You would never achieve learning how to hit the ball. And it's, I think you have this idea that art some people, it just flows from them. And well, sure. But at the same time, they also have their corner of bad art and their naughty corner, and you just don't see it. And you have to just keep going and try some different things out. And I think kids have the advantage of just playing around, just like anything. They'll, sure, I'll try it. I'll do this.
Yeah.
And like my kids, they will just come in. I call it a studio. That's not exactly what it is. It's our basement, which is where I am right now. And they have sort of their own little cabinet that has the kid paints, and it has the kid paper and the kid brushes and all that. And they will just sit on the floor and they'll paint whatever. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. It's not the outcome, it's the process, and it's the journey, and that they have fun trying different things. And when I'm down here with them, they'll ask, how come this turned out this way? Or what, the big thing when you're beginning is, if you don't reference a color wheel, you have the potential to make what's called mud, which is when you mix the colors on the opposite side of the color wheel. And you get this really not beautiful color. And so what do you do with that? And so, the short answer is mix it with a lot of white and you'll get a really beautiful neutral. But if you don't know that and you start mixing those things, you think, this is the worst. Like, none of this is working. This all looks terrible. And so, kids are not bothered by that, though. I have a lot of art from the kids that is really not great, but they don't care.
Well, and I do think, like as a kid, you're encouraged to do art and you're encouraged to do these things. And then you get into adulthood and again, it becomes about outcomes. And it's
and I think we have this view, I think sort of culturally, that art is a frivolous endeavor. Which I would argue, again, coming back to that journey, it's not frivolous. It may not produce the level of work that you would find in a museum or that is going to get international recognition. But if when you're doing it, you are mentally and emotionally able to get to that state where you lose track of time, there have been studies that show that flow state is extremely therapeutic for people. It helps them work through trauma. It helps them work through depression, through a lot of other, issues that it's hard to tap into that and work through it. But if you use art and you can get to that place where you just sort of lose track of time and you're goofing off and playing around, that art is, the process of art and the process of creativity is very important, and it can serve a very important role for people. And I think, especially for those of us that are taking care of other people all the time, and someone else is on your radar all the time, having a way to be with just you and what you're thinking and what you're feeling is very therapeutic and very helpful.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Well, this has been really fun. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I do want to give people a chance to get a hold of you and learn more about you and your artwork, and maybe more about your process. But how can they do that?
Yes, I have my website, which you happen to catch me in the middle of rebranding.
Oh, okay.
We've moved from Second Rendition now to it's mopalazzolo.com.
Okay.
So that's mopalazzolo.com. And that is my website. My Instagram, which is what I'm on most often as far as showing what I'm up to and what I'm doing, is mo_Palazzolo_art.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Maureen, it's been fascinating learning about your journey through art, and how it's helped you with dealing with things in your life, because we're all dealing with things. And
right.
So I think it's wonderful that you've been able to find this outlet in particular, and it gives so much joy to other people too. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Maureen has such a cool confidence about herself, and I think that's a direct reflection of her journey through art. As she said, creating art isn't about the end result, but the process of creativity. I guess Bob Ross got a few things right after all. And of course, it is nice when you can turn a profit, but money isn't the only measure of success. Personally, I'm looking for positive internal outcomes, emotional stability, and contentment. When those are the goals, prosperity often follows. That's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you check out the show notes so that you can reach out to Maureen with any requests or questions. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Till next time, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by OnCall Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find OnCall Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.